Hello again, and thank you for joining us for Joy to the World with J. John. And today's theme on day 15 is the adoration of the shepherds. And for me, shepherds is actually part of my family name, and it's always interesting to find out a wee bit more. So here we go. Although actually there is a bit of an adult theme here. Although monarchies are pretty much an endangered species in the western part of Europe, the birth of a royal child generates extraordinary interest, even in countries that guillotined their royal family a long time ago. Newsagents will be full of magazines with photo spreads of the infant and the smiling royal parents. Royal births have always been important. In the days when kings were properly kings, there was a great deal of anxiety about having an heir to the throne. Think of Henry VIII and those poor wives. Royal births should, by rights, be events that are celebrated by those in power and by the public. One of the most significant aspects of Jesus' birth is the way that power is hidden in obscurity. Those in power are conspicuous by their absence when Jesus appears. That's perhaps surprising given the significance of his birth. Jesus is the long-awaited deliverer coming to the Jewish people. And by long-awaited, we mean long. He fulfills a promise given to David 1,000 years earlier, and one far older to Abraham. By rights, this baby ought to have been born in Jerusalem, David's city, and it ought to have been a palace. By rights, he should have been born with all the glory, comfort and majesty that human beings can devise, with numerous royal attendants and doctors. By rights, too, the infant should have been visited by the rulers, governors, high priests, and all those in authority. By rights, there should have been royal proclamations, fireworks across the nation, and celebratory cards from Caesar and other monarchs. By rights. The fundamental point about the coming of Jesus to the world is that rights were put aside. As we all know, it was not like that. The birth at the first Christmas was in humility. The Son of God was born in poverty, in a space normally reserved for animals. There can be no doubt that Jesus was born into a setting that was about as poor and modest a place as we can imagine. Given the situation, it is perfectly appropriate that the first visitors were shepherds. Shepherds were useful people. After all, the sacrificial system just up the road in Jerusalem required vast numbers of sheep. Indeed, it's a nice thought that they were guarding the sacrificial sheep, in which case their summons to the birth of the one who would be called the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world, is especially appropriate. Socially, however, shepherds were very much the bottom of the pile. Let's face it. While the sheep of the nativity play are clean, fluffy and dazzlingly white, sheep in the real world are off colour, dirty and smelly. And in those days, those who looked after them probably deserved the same adjectives. Yet, one of the tremendous things about the first Christmas is that God invites the shepherds as witnesses to the birth of the Messiah. The powerful, the rich, the lords and ladies of society, they all miss out. Instead, those at the bottom are invited in. The God of the Bible is someone who believes in inclusion. It's fascinating that what happens with the shepherds is exactly what Mary herself prophesied in the song that is traditionally called the Magnificat. One of the great themes of this is the way in which God will reverse the status of the world. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty-handed. Luke 1:52-53. I'm sure this is an encouragement to many of us. We look around at the rich and the influential, those who portray themselves as the movers and makers of society and culture, the really important people, as they no doubt consider themselves. And most of us realise that we are not in that category. God invites you to the birth of the Son, and if you consider yourself powerful and influential, be careful that you don't let your importance cause you to miss out on Christmas. Shepherds get a mention in many carols, one of which they play a prominent part is "See Amid the Winter Snow." Born for us on earth below, see the tender Lamb appear, promised from eternal years. Hail the ever blessed morn, hail redemption's happy dawn. Sing through all Jerusalem, Christ is born in Bethlehem. Thank you for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, where we'll find out about the Magi.